jewels like a drunken pirate. Showing up the parties uninvited with the Sunday fire I be praising God with. Probably leaving everyone inspired. If they spirits any higher, they would mosh pit. We don't really want that, do we? Nah. Man, I never care what I haters say. Y'all tripping, my sauce dripping like a winter coach bathed in a Gatorade. Ooh, flame in an 808. Straight propane, let me demonstrate. Put 5 to the beat and do the same thing Eminem and Jay did a renegade.
Look up, man, look at what I got cooked up. Could've took us with a beam in the clutch, but no, good God, that's mean in the clutch. Teaming it up with a rough bunch, and I don't play game like putt-putt. Gotta let God be the gut punch. He's running the play like hunt. If you really trying to have a dust-up, tuck your pride and recognize what just us. Plus the mighty hand of God to ruck us. Swinging with your might will get you bust up. Trying to hurt the kid to get you roughed up. Like Paul and Silas, till I'm in a coffin virus. Benefit righteous, feeling it, living it, pious.
Daddy, let me loose. They gotta move. Bishop with the burner, baby. I got the juice. They hating on my team. Cause we the truth. Won't he do it? And we the proof. We gon' take them way, 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 way. We gon' take them way, 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 way.
Deep in the valley, down in the dungeon, lions lurking, faith not certain. I'm surrounded by the mountains here. I've been faithful, but I drowned in fear.
I ain't never been up in the lion's den, but I sure had me a couple lion friends, and you would swear it was lions and tigers in a couple of the neighborhoods I resided in. Knew a few shooters, I was Iverson. Had to be crucified and die within. I flew the coop with Christ and truth. This was I to lie to him and not die to sin. Fell down, but I ain't stay. More like 4 times in the same day. No life felt like low life, may as well don't try. We didn't all feel the same way. Real talk can't fade. Feeling like I am unable to bounce back. Been to the bottom and made it about that. Willing to ride with a label of comrades with the most high road bike, catch a contact. I suggest if you live in this life and flesh between trife and righteousness, get it right, repent, receive Christ, this life or death. I pray you choose right, my friend.
Deep in the valley, down in a dungeon, lions lurking, faith not certain. I'm surrounded by the mountains here. I've been faithful, but I drown in fear. You could tell the enemy I got that shimmy on me. I'm saturated in this favor, see this shimmy on me. In the middle of the trenches with a vengeance, shaking these demons I see. Clenching to the scriptures with a grip that will pop a top when I squeeze. Living life like never let go, let God. I'ma give it all I got like I empty my wallet. Dropping these coins in a bucket, crabs in a barrel. They pulling at my soul, finna throw down the gauntlet. Sovereign, he's almighty. Follow with all I can. Suffered enough, why would I ever give in? I fight till my end. He is my whole life. He conquers all my fears in my own eyes. He is the one I depend on for all my strength when I can't climb. Order my steps. Peace when I climb it. Heavy on rest. On knees when I get weak. He is my tent. In the battle with the beast and it's violent. Evil will try me. Never will it bind me. Break me, shake me. It cannot take me. Tie me down to the chain link. Sever them threads. With the daily. I flow bread when the 10 peak. Yeah. I'm not bound to the valley. Yeah. Shadow of death all behind me. Yeah. Show no fear on a journey. Yeah. I know God be my army. Yeah. I fight out in the darkness. Yeah. He pick up on the main line. Yeah. I find joy in the lamplight. Yeah. Order my steps for my whole life. Deep in the valley, down in a dungeon, lions lurking, faith not certain. I'm surrounded by the mountains here. I've been faithful, but I drown in fear.
You got a gang, well I got a squad. You got a platoon, but what can it do when I got a God? You pillage and murder, when will it stop? You pushing the line, now I'm pushing mine till one of us drop. Yeah. I roll with the racks, so I won't let it rack. I roll with the racks, so I won't let it rack, no. I roll with the racks, so I won't let it rack. I roll with the racks, so I won't let it rack, no. Either rap Christ gang or you don't bang. Covered by the blood, it's a whole game. Slipped in sin, but it don't rain. Christ paid for the whole thing. Look at my white tee, no
wish it would end. And I say, Jesus made me a fisher of men. If you don't like it, listen to them. Let's go. This rock's not crack cocaine. If you applied the strap and you tapped your vein, then you squeeze the syringe with the needle within. The high from smack will never match, no way. No way. This hobble till you pass those planes up to the astro plane. If you take one hit of this, it'll blow your mind like you tried to reenact Cobain.
Bang! Gang, well, I got a squad. You got a platoon, but what can you do when I got a god? You pillage and murder, when will it stop? You pushing the line, now I'm pushing mine till one of us drop. Yeah. I roll with the rack, so I won't let it rack. I roll with the rack, so I won't let it rack. No, I roll with the rack, so I won't let it rack. I roll with the rack, so I won't let it rack. No.
Rock steady, the rock dividing my levies. Rock up on top, he leading my heavy. Rock ain't gon' stop, couple of shots rain now. Hope my faith don't drop. See the troops come through. Pop the trunk, reveal it in the booth. I am not the one, artillery the truth. Finna load the gun, don't jitter with the pew pew. So I can't fiddle with the fools. I remember when I struggled in my pain till night came. Even with it, the night hang over my aims. I lean on the rock solid when I can. Stand strong when I'm weak, even in my games. Still in it, I'm still winning, I'm all in it. Grow in it, evolve, carry the cross in it. Squad getting evolved, circle is God fearing. Rock be all I got, see why I rock with them.
Gang, well, I got a squad. You got a platoon, but what can you do when I got a god? You pillage and murder, when will it stop? You pushing the line, now I'm pushing mine till one of us drop. Yeah. I roll with the rack, so I won't let it rack. I roll with the rack, so I won't let it rack. No, I roll with the rack, so I won't let it rack. I roll with the rack, so I won't let it rack. No.
I took the narrow road, I'm not sorry. I took the narrow road, I'm not sorry. Can't do this on my own, I know I'm not alone. Tryna hold me back, you gon' need an army. I keep on looking out my window. I keep on looking out my window. I see the world going every way the wind blows. Not me, cause I know what I stand for.
Man, I've been suffering cause of my fate. Seem like it's scaring some people away. They be in love with the money I make, but knowing I'm Christian make them hesitate. They respect me and salute it for sure. They don't want no real parts of it though. They ain't really trying to ride for the cause. They just rather me to buy them some cars. Fish out of water, I never fit in. We were put here to be fishers of men. Christian don't mean you ain't never gonna sin, but live for the world, you ain't never gonna win. Sometimes I think to myself late at night, I wish more people were helping me fight. But if we ain't on the same mission in life, you can't run my business, that ain't gonna be right. People say if my fate wasn't so bold, it'd be much easier for me to blow. But it's too much a part of me to hide. Won't be like Peter, Christ, I won't deny. If it's for God that I suffer, that's cool. That's cool. Persecution and loneliness too. Cause during my weakest times, that's room for Christ to shine.
I took the narrow road, I'm not sorry. I took the narrow road, I'm not sorry. Can't do this on my own, I know I'm not alone. Tryna hold me back, you gon' need an army. I keep on looking out my window. I keep on looking out my window. I see the girl going every way the wind blows. Not me, cause I know what I stand for.
The love of my life, don't love that I fight against my flesh to try to live right. She just want for me to call her at night, link up with her and just give her okay. Deep in my heart, I wish she was the one. Every time that we link up, we have fun. But when I try to talk real with my baby, she change the subject and get irritated. Yeah, we got chemistry, I can't deny, but I don't know if I'm her type of guy. She think I'm holding her back from living. I'm trying to help her be purpose driven. If you ask her about God, she know. If I say go to church, then she'll go. But she ain't spiritually trying to grow. She more concerned with trying to blow. She need attention cause she want the fame. She went on Instagram and peeped the game. Take off her clothes, her body exposed. Her following grows, then she could get shows. I do not judge cause I understand it. Fame's the most powerful drug on the planet. So it ain't work out with my babe. Cause she wanted me minus my
If you
fate.
were to say I gotta change my ways, if you were to say I gotta give him my faith, then I'd have to say that I don't wanna stay. And I think it's okay if you walk away. I keep on looking out my window. I keep on looking out my window. While everybody going everywhere the wind blows. Not me, cause I know what I stand for.
little different. I'm a 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 little different. Yeah. Steph Curry with the shot. Joseph with the dream. Samson with the hair. David with the sling. Finessing with the hooks. Look at young Kareem. Only God did this. Look, mama, I'm free. Free at last, yeah, I'm free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. To get close to you, yeah, I pray and fast. Chasing after you, my heart beating fast. My God is so amazing. Daddy said I was worth saving. Satisfied all of my cravings. Kept me from going crazy. He picked me up, then he turned me around. Gave me a new start.
Good evening. How y'all doing? One of the TVs up, I think. Uh, my name is Dominique Johnson. I'm the pastor here at Kingdom Life. I'm also the program manager of Cure Violence. We're located in Pleasant Hill. I'm also the president and founder of the Urban CEO, which stands for the Urban Community Empowerment Organization. But on tonight, we started out our Peace Week yesterday, really, our Cure Violence Week. And we started out by my team and I getting youth first aid mental health certified. Am I right? All right. And we thank the one and only Andrea Cook for that. Give her a hand. Yeah. So we made hundreds on our test. I got the certificate to say it. We got to say it. Anybody went to Central in here? Whoa, 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 not on the east side, not today. Y'all know how that. See, just to let y'all know, I am an equal opportunity congratulator. I'm an equal opportunity congratulator. Congratulations on y'all 96.41 graduation rate. I'm not a hater. We second, and I know people are gonna say, "Hey, it should be 100." Yes, I know, but we want to also give shout out to all the. I think all the schools are 80 and above. It used to be below, so we're going in the right direction. All right, and so the second part of our week starts today. It is today, and we're going to have this panel discussion on gun violence as it relates to community well-being. So I'm gonna pause there. Tomorrow, Frank will be leading a resource fair in Pleasant Hill at Jefferson Long Park. If it rains, we will be at Booker T. Washington Center, and that starts at what time, Frank? 2 to 6. So let people know we have a resource fair either at Jefferson Long Park. If it rains, we're moving it to Booker T. All right? That's Wednesday. Thursday, we chilling. We may find something else to do real quick. The only reason why we're doing that is a 70% chance of rain. We were going to do Kids Day that day. But we're moving it to Friday, starting at 4 p.m. Bring the kids out, all that. We're going to have, I think it's a foam slide, game truck, and then at 7 o'clock, we will go into our movie night, all right? All that'll be at Jefferson Long Park. And Saturday, we'll be teaming up with some other community workers at Booker T from 11 to 4. All right? All right. So make sure you're there. But tonight, we want to take the next hour and a half, maybe about 7:30, and we want to have this discussion. Excuse me. As I curate this panel, you know, there's a lot of, some of you all could have been on this panel, right? Or whatnot. But I said, who can I get to really, I want them to hear from what's going on inside, outside. So we have a practitioner and Bishop McGuire. He'll let you know who he is. I'm going to get a microphone to Shanita Smith. We have Judge Shay Young, right? Minister Geraldine and Mr. Romiski Williams. And I'm going to get out the way because Shanita said I'm doing her job, so I go on.
Good evening, everyone. Can we give Dr. Dominique Johnson a round of applause? Thank you all for being here tonight. And can we also give a round of applause to the Cure Violence team and all of the work that they are doing within our community. We're going to go ahead and get started with this conversation on tonight. It's a conversation that is very near and dear to my heart because I have had two sons that were actually victims of gun violence. Thank God that they both survived, but I have had two sons that were shot in this community. And so I'll save my introduction for last, but I want to go down and have each person to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about what it is that you do. So we'll start right here and we'll go down and end with Dr. McGuire.
Testing. Zone. Can you hear me? Okay. Thanks for having me. First of all, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Romiski Williams. I am the Facility Director for the Macon Regional Youth Detention Center. You might know it as the RYDC in Macon. I've been with the Department of Juvenile Justice now going on 24 years. I've been a director at the facility out there in Macon on Good? That's better. Okay, I said I've been the facility director at the Macon Regional Youth Detention Center for probably the last 7 years. Okay, gotcha. And we deal with youth that get, that come into the juvenile justice system by way of whatever, various different reasons they come into the system. Might be something they had no part in, just for their own well-being sometimes. So not always they doing something wrong, but for the most part, they're committed some type of crime, and when they come into us, we're charged with making sure they're safe, they're taken care of, they get all the treatment services, everything that they need, and that they're warranted by the state of Georgia, their rights. And so I'm just glad to be here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cheryl Dean, and I am a licensed professional counselor right here in Macon, Georgia. I am the founder of Seeds of Life Ministries Incorporated, and I'm also the owner of Seeds of Life Counseling Agency. I provide mental health services to individuals starting at the age of 5 and above. And some of the things that I work with specifically is trauma-related issues, anxiety, stress, depression, and I really have an affinity for working with women.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Judge Shay Young, and I am the juvenile court judge for this circuit. I serve Bibb, Peach, and Crawford counties. As a juvenile court judge, I deal with children on the juvenile justice side, so those who are charged with committing crimes, The lion's share of what I do, though, is on the dependency side with children who are taken into care by the Department of Family and Children's Services, and I'm the person that determines whether or not they will be reunited with their families or whether or not they will continue in foster care or ultimately be adopted or live outside of the home. So that is most of what I do, so very sensitive matters that I deal with on a daily basis.
Good evening. My name is Mark McGuire. I am the founder and CEO of the CARES Justice Institute. CARES is an acronym that stands for Community Alliances for Restorative Education and Social Justice. I'm also the Director of Discipleship, Outreach, and Evangelism for the Potter's House International Ministries in Jacksonville, Florida. And finally, I'm the Director of Cure Violence Jacksonville, 2 of the 3 sites, the North Side MVP team and the West Side MVP team. And just honored to be here and a friend of Dr. Johnson.
Can we give our panelists a round of applause for taking time to be with us on this evening? And I am Shanita Smith. I am the founder of the People's Advocacy Group. I'm also a board member of Heal the Hood Empowerment Movement, East Macon Federal Credit Union. I've also had the opportunity to serve in various capacities in our community, including Workforce Development Director, also was a correctional officer at the Macon Youth Development Center, along with a training supervisor at the Department of Family and Children's Services and a mental health technician at River Edge. So I've had a lot of opportunity to see some of the things that can impact our community in a variety of different ways. And so one of the things that we want to do in this conversation on tonight, I know sometimes we know a lot of what we can see and what we think may contribute to gun violence in our community. And what I'm excited about the conversation on today is that we have a variety of perspective. And so one of the questions that we want to start with tonight, and I want to ask each one of you, what are some of the common factors and root causes that contribute to gun violence in the community from each of your perspective? And I want to start with Minister Cheryl.
Thank you for starting with me. So when I was looking at some of the things that's going on in the community today, and a lot of the issues that I see surrounds what's going on in the home. You know, I see a lot of domestic violence that involves serious conditions that can lead into gun violence. Working in positions where the individuals that are left behind, you know, those types of things, anger, sadness, depression, poor conditions, that has a lot to deal with some of the issues that the individuals that are using the guns.
Dr. McGuire?
You know, from a practitioner standpoint, I think you see a combination of the cure violence model, which is an epidemic, violence and gun violence being an epidemic, but also from a social standpoint, you look at it from the behavioral sciences side, where you look at sociology, psychology, and even the anthropology part of that, that just talks about the environmental influences that are taking place with our young people and folk who are just dealing with trauma, dealing with unresolved issues from their past, and not being able to channel aggression properly. And you know, there's even some research that talks about the post-traumatic slave syndrome that is still rampant in the mentality of many. And I think when you look at the combination of all of those things and just the fact that we have inequity of opportunity, inequalities, and injustices, I think it just is a boiling pot, and we just haven't had enough opportunity to give our young people some other options. But I think with people like that are on the panel today, we have some answers and some solutions, so I'm excited about that.
Mr. Williams?
I think from my perspective, seeing kids come in from my community, Macon, I serve 13 counties, so I get kids from all over this area here. And one thing that when they come in, I talk to them and just find out what's going on with them, where you from, what's going on, how where you been, just your background or whatever. And I see one big thing is accessibility as far as guns, period. It's just so much different now. I remember as a teenager, you might have knew of somebody that might have knew they had an uncle that had a gun that was up in the closet somewhere, but now it's like kids average 2 or 3 guns on them. And they have no problem showing it on the ground, how many sticks I got, what we did, we spent the block, we did this. And forgive me if I'm using some language a lot of times, but this is just a lot of times what's being said straight from their mouths, because I talk to them. So accessibility, another thing is like the lack of any idea on how to resolve conflict. Right now, talking about something that's weak, you lame. Don't nobody talk about nothing, man. I'm gonna put this thing on you and that's gonna be it. Regardless if that's gonna end your life, my life behind bars, the thought process doesn't even come in place a lot of times. It's just, I'm on that and I deal with it afterwards. And so I get them a lot of times and I'm talking to them like, man, I messed up, man. Kid had never been no problem, never got any trouble, whatever, but this one thing, he's done. And I feel for him because I talk to him like, look, man, you could have been just like my son. A lot of them grew up with my son, playing sports with my son around here. So I took a lot of ownership in it. When I see kids, the difference was when I was leaving practice, I had him in the car taking him home. A lot of those was walking, and whatever happened between the football field, baseball field, and when they got home is why they're here. A lot of times. That's all the time. Okay?
Judge Young, I have you to.
So piggybacking off of what Director Williams said, before they get to them, they have most likely experienced some sort of trauma in their homes, in their community. And so you have a lot of children that have been molested, a lot of, and especially in the Black community, we don't want to talk about that. Sometimes we don't want to acknowledge it. Sometimes their parent does not even want to acknowledge it, if it was mama's boyfriend or whoever. And sometimes I just had the other week a child crying out in court saying, what happened. This is why I have done what I have done. I have been abused, sexually, physically, mentally. And the mama, she just got up and she just walked out. And it's not something that she could take. We don't want to acknowledge that. A lot of times we on like the 3rd or 4th generation of abuse. And trauma that has just not been processed and that's not have been dealt with. And then when children come into the court system, we re-traumatize them over again. If you don't think that taking a child out of their home is going to result in some sort of a charge, them eventually being caught up in the criminal justice system or something of that nature, then you're crazy. That's what happens. And then we re-traumatize them by having them tell their story over and over again in front of people that they don't know, and we have not established some sort of rapport with them. And so I think, that is a lot, that is kind of the foundation of where, the gun violence, comes from. And we just don't have the type of community anywhere where it takes a village to raise a child. We're not there anymore. And so we have a lot of these children that are fending for themselves out there. They might live in a home with a parent or a custodian, but they're on their own. And it doesn't just take shelter and clothing to raise a child. It takes, emotional health, mental health, and that's not what these children are receiving. And then if they're making a baby, how can they give that child, what they don't have, what they never had, that hasn't been modeled for them?
Minister Dean, can you piggyback on what Judge Young was saying about the traumatic experiences that our young people and our families are actually going through, and how that manifests itself and leads to these repeated cycles of not just gun violence, but just repeated cycles of abuse and neglect, whether it's addiction, those illnesses. Can you piggyback on that?
So when we're talking about intergenerational trauma and how it's a cycle when it's not broken, when there's no education, a lack of education, a lack of support, a lack of a community, as she stated, we're going to stay into that cycle, particularly when we don't want to talk about the issues. We don't want to talk about how sexual abuse can go from the first generation to the second generation to the third generation because mindset hasn't changed. I do what I see. I continue the cycle of what I see, particularly when I don't have a community that's coming in and loving me in a way that can tell me when I am incorrect, or can tell me that you are better than this and you can overcome this. You know, when there's no one to talk to about these secrets, it keeps the cycle going. And we're not just talking about little girls, we're talking about boys. Because it happens to boys too. And nobody wants to take that on. That is a huge thing. So when I see my grandmother being abused, alcoholic, drug addiction, and it's celebrated in the community. We will celebrate someone making it big in a negative type of way, but when we have a young child that needs to be nurtured to say, hey, you are smart, you're good, you're doing a wonderful job, we don't celebrate that as much. And I'm not trying to put down the one that's going through the negative cycle. However, but we do have to come in and embrace that child and help that child understand before they get to Mr. Williams, there's a better way. You know, when I see my brother, my cousin, my granddad, and that's the only lifestyle I know, we got a problem. When the hood is the only thing that I know being something that's negative, when you hear the connotation of hood, you instantly think of something negative, when your hood should be the place where you can go and have safety. So we have to change that vernacular. However, in order to do that, we have to start with the people on top, the adults, the parents. So that's how we can begin to break that cycle of intergenerational trauma that travels from mother to child, you know? That's how we can begin to do that, with education, with societal changing of how we look at people who've been through negative situations, that's been through the judicial system. We got to change the way we look at people. So love can be corrective, but love can also feel like I want to do what she's doing, you know, so.
Thank you for that. Dr. McGuire, can you jump in there and just tell us from your perspective, how does the presence of gun violence impact the social fabric and sense of a community within a neighborhood and even a congregation when it comes to providing those types of solutions that are needed to what Judge Young has mentioned, as well as Minister Cheryl and Minister Will, Mr. Williams?
Well, you know, guns produce fear. And I think a lot of times, you know, one of the slogans we have back home is, when grown men are afraid of little boys, you've lost a community. But when there's a gun involved, a lot of people don't want to get involved with that. And so it's a major situation. Even for congregations, you know, many people don't have that experience. And, you know, for some of us, we know what it means to be 419-56061. And that was my federal number. And so we have an experience that will allow us to have some type of fortitude to deal with some of those things. That's not common in a congregation. That's not common in community where people are going to go and give back from where they came from to deal with those individuals. Minister? Minister Williams. So when he talks about the work that he does, regardless of what his history is, he's gained the impetus that's needed to approach these individuals and to be able to talk to them straightforward. A lot of people don't know what to say. And when you're not trained, and this is really important, when you're not trained with trauma-informed care, when you're not dealing with children from a judicial standpoint on a regular basis, policy standpoint, you just don't know what to do. And you know, one of the things that has happened in this community, and I think he said it beautifully before, when I was younger, you know, I was talking to my coworker coming up here. You saw somebody with a gun and they were talking about shooting people and all of that. That was kind of weird when I was 15. I mean, we were thugging and we were in a gang, so we thought, but we wasn't really trying to drop no bodies. You know, we really wanted to get some money. It was bands over bodies. Now it's bodies over bands. And so it's kind of a weird hustle now, but it's just trying to figure that out where it's a prestige. And so between the prestige that they feel and the disrespect that they have, you know, a lot of people just don't want to get involved. And I'm not saying it's not dangerous, but somebody's got to step up. And I'll go back to our slogan. I mean, when grown men are afraid of little boys, we've lost our community. And one of the things that's been really sad to me is I've seen more women step up and put themselves in the middle of situations than I've seen men. But thank God for a Dr. Johnson and Cure Violence and different movements that you're on the board of and that are taking place, that men are taking that role. And so we're thankful and excited about that. But I think fear is the greatest deterioration of us stepping up or building up against gun violence.
Yes, and I'll add to that. You said something that was the grown men being afraid of little boys, but also the trauma-informed care of how important it is, not just for those that are clinicians, but congregations and those that work directly with the what we call sometimes hard to serve populations or underserved populations. It's so important for us to have trauma-informed care because there's a big difference for asking someone what's wrong with you, why you act like this, instead of taking the time to say what happened to you. Because many of us have been in situations and circumstances that pushed us into a certain thing. We talked about the generational abuse and the generational things that are being passed down. Doesn't necessarily have to be sexual abuse, but most of the time it is. But the bad habits that we learn, you know, I know a lot of people that smoked their first blunts with their parents or had their first taste of alcohol with their parents. And so these generational things that happen, and for many of us that did not raise our kids that way, those are the kids that they're going to school with, and those are the kids that begin to have the influence over them, and those are the kids that have the loudest voice when we get to a certain age, which is how a lot of us got into the trouble that we ended up in when we are. So for those of us that are sitting here, if you have not been any type of trauma-informed care, we need some trauma-informed care training. And we have Andrea back there in the back that we got resources in our community that we can equip ourselves to make sure so that we can come out of some of this fear that Dr. McGuire was talking about, because it grips us all. I don't go to the gas station late at night, period. Just period. As a female, I do not go to the gas station late at night. It gets dark, then we just gonna have to make it work in the morning. But it's a reality of what's happening in our community, and it should not be that way. It should not be that way. So I want to come back over to you, Mr. Williams, and ask you, as well as Judge Young, what role does the juvenile justice system play in addressing the consequences of gun violence in our community? What do you think the role of the juvenile justice system plays in addressing that? I'm gonna go with you, Mr. Williams, and then to Judge Young.
Okay. In my opinion, the juvenile justice system does a very good job as far as once a kid comes into the system due to gun violence or whatever type of violence they was participating in. They have all the services there for them. You have staff that truly care, that really want to help the youth. It's not like, oh my God, here go another one like that, because that's how everybody else seems to look at them. But when they come here, like, I don't know how you work with these kids. I don't know how you deal with them. Like, these kids, your next door neighbor, these kids across the street from you, they're your family. So if you feel like that, then what you think everybody else will feeling like? You know, so we just try to make sure that we have an environment where we hold them accountable for things that they're doing. The juvenile justice system, they have set rules and regulations that they follow for whatever violations that the kid has. But I think a lot of times the biggest piece is that wraparound piece. Once that kid has been with us and they got that good training, they got that good redirection, they got some good coping skills, they got some things they can do differently rather than just pick up a gun, and now they're going back to the same environment with the same individuals that had a big part in doing what they was doing. So I would like to see a better wraparound service for when the kids leave RYDC, because RYDCs is just for when you come in, you get in trouble, you're supposed to be here for a day or two to find out what's going to happen with you, whatever. Judge Young going to determine whatever, and then at that point, they're going. They're going to their parents, or they're going to a long-term state. But right now, as of today, my average length of stay for every kid that comes in is 67 days. 67 days. Regardless of what they did, that's the average, right? So a lot of that is because on the long-term side, beds are full. I have right now 60 kids. I have a 64-bed facility right now. I have 60 as of today. I have maybe 18 at other facilities because when they got detained, I was full. I couldn't even take anymore. So they out there waiting to come back to me and make it. Okay.
Judge Young.
Yes, so, and just to clarify what Director Williams said, he is over in RYDC, okay? So that is just equivalent to jail, okay? And then a YDC is equivalent to prison, okay? So he is short-term. It's supposed to be short-term, but you see, is not as short as we think it is. But I feel like, you know, my role is definitely to hold children accountable. But what I add to that, what Shay adds to that, is to hold them accountable with love. And so holding someone accountable does not always mean that they have to be sent to some sort of custody time. Sometimes a child can be held accountable just by acknowledging, knowing what they did was wrong, or knowing the circumstances within, you know, which, you know, they came to me, that they're not going to do that anymore. And so, and I also try to give children a voice. You know, oftentimes in the Black community, we want to talk for our boys. I don't need to hear you, mama. I'm talking to him. We're here for him, okay? And so I'm going to talk to him. Thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate your help. But me and him going to have a conversation, and so we need to, you know, talk about this. And just letting that child know that you are not what you are charged with. And so I'm going to respect you and give you a voice, because children deserve respect. And oftentimes we want children to stay in their place. We want them to do what they're told. But you're not doing what you're told as a parent. You're not staying in your place. You're not giving them a good example. And so then we wondering why they, you know, I don't know how they ended up here. I do. And so I do try to, you know, give children that voice and allow them, you know, the opportunity, you know, just, you know, speaking with them. And then letting them know that I am also, you know, a part of the community. So my husband is here, and he is the principal at Southwest High School. And so where our graduation rate is 87%. But But most of the kids that come in front of me know that, that's where my husband is principal, or that my child goes there. And so oftentimes I will, check up on them. I work the concession stands at the football games, and so, I try to keep, in contact with them. And I do that even past, once they graduate. And so I live in this community, so I want to see the people in this community, succeed. And so, that has been good for me because they're holding me accountable too. I can't treat them any kind of way and then I'm gonna see them at the grocery store. You know what I'm saying? So are they bagging my groceries, or are they working at a restaurant where I'm eating? You can't treat people any kind of way. So that holds me accountable, as well for them. And I pride myself that not just those children, but those parents see me as a resource. And so oftentimes, they will come back to me or they'll call me, hey, I want to ask you about something, or, can you check to see if I got a warrant, or something like that, or whatever it is, being accessible. So I see that as my role, because I just think it's important that I'm a service provider. Okay, so I serve the people in this community. It's not just that I'm a judge and I, put people in jail, or I take children out of the home, but I am servicing, you, and I want to be able to provide good customer service. And so a lot of times, doing that with love, sometimes parents come into court, women, they have a bonnet on their head, and there's a way that you tell somebody that is not acceptable without embarrassing them. And so sometimes I will call them up, oh, that's a cute shirt you got on now. Next time you can't wear that bonnet in court, okay? But that's a private conversation between me and them. I'm not blasting them out in court. Sometimes I don't say nothing. And so people will be like, we good. We just need to get through this right here, okay? They came. They here. That's a big step, okay? So we ain't gonna talk about the bonnet. Let these people go in peace after we finish here. So that is just knowing, when to do that and how to, handle, people, because parents were once children as well. And sometimes they have a lot of trauma that they have not dealt with. So just being able to do that with love, I think, is extremely important. I think that's my role.
I want us to be able to also identify how important it is for us to have the right people in place, because having Judge Young be our juvenile court judge is important for our community. It's important for our kids because of exactly what she just said. There's what I call a proximity deficit sometimes when people are making decisions and making choices of policies and procedures, that they're too far away from the problem to understand the impact of the decision that they're actually making, which causes further problems. It doesn't move towards solutions. We're in a hamster wheel now because the person who has the authority to make those decisions are too far removed from the issue and from the problem. And so some of the strategies that you heard her say are not required by her law degree for her to take the extra step of bringing humanity into the courtroom and treating me as a person, because me coming in a certain appearance doesn't necessarily mean that this is the full representation of who I am as a person. It is a cultural thing, it is an environment thing, it is an exposure thing as well, but I have enough in my heart to be respectful towards you as a human being. So we appreciate you for that, Judge Young. Minister Cheryl, can you talk a little bit about what has been some of the most effective therapeutic strategies that you have seen that has worked for some of the community things that we have been talking about and been discussing?
One of the biggest things that I have seen that has worked is being able to listen. It's real simple. But sometimes it's difficult to do because we want to talk, particularly as parents, we want to talk about the thing versus listening to the child. Or as the civil servant, we want to talk to them instead of listening to what's going on, building a rapport with them. Before I even get to any therapeutic modalities, being able to build a rapport and get into their world. You know, let me see you come as you are with your bonnet on. I would have women and children come with your bonnet on. I just need you to come, because if I can get you into the seat, we can do anything else after that. You know, being able to treat a person as a human being before we get to any therapeutic modalities, treating an individual as a human being. And as Judge Young said, you are not what you did. Yeah. You are more than that. Now, there are some consequences to your actions where you might have a little serial number on you for a while. That may happen, but you are way more than that. And if we look at each encounter that individual, that child has, if we can plant a seed, don't worry about it growing. It's going to grow. Your position at that time is to plant the seed. Judge Will could come along and she'll water it. Bishop, he'll come along, he'll pull a weed. Mr. Williams, he'll come along and put some fertilizer on it. But while you're in my seed, let me plant a seed before I get to any therapeutic modality. Let's build a relationship. Let's give them hope. Scripture tells us hope and a future. There's more for you. Yeah, your mom did it, your sister did it, your brother did it, your grandma, but you don't have to do it. There's a better way. Now it's going to require some work. And it's going to require the way you think. Now we can start moving to some therapeutic thing, because I don't want to re-traumatize you. So there are modalities that we can use without re-traumatizing that individual. EMDR, eye movement, desensitization, reprocessing. So we can use that with our trauma victims. We can use brain spotting without having to re-traumatize you and you tell your entire story of just give me the headlines. But with that comes along with the clinician, as you stated, that's not so far removed from it. That's willing to go the extra mile. So I might have to write an excuse for you so that you can go back to school. And it's within my wheelhouse to do it. I may give you some exercises, and I may go outside of the wheelhouse and buy the stuff that you need so that you can do the exercise that you need in the counseling session. Because I know your family doesn't have it. So when you come, that's why the community is necessary to help these organizations, so that when that baby comes in there, they have what they need. So we can do the therapy. And before I even talk to the children, I need to see the parent, the caregiver, whomever is over this child at least 3 times. Because what happens is as Mr. Williams stated, we give them the tools. And they're in there for 67 days, so I know that they're going through some counseling because I came through that. That's where I got my mental health start. So I know they're going through counseling. However, what's happening, the family is not. And that's why it's so important that we get the family involved. Family may be the neighbor. Family may be the pastor. Family may be the best friend. Family, whomever has lead with that child, let's get them in there also. So now we want to build a new community. If I'm taking you from somewhere, I got to give you something to look forward to. Or else you're just going to go back. That's what Scripture says. So being able to give them tools, that's a huge way to help our children. And that tool may come from all of these different counterparts. And by the time they get to the place where they are able to do it upon themselves, they have something to fall back on. So what we're doing is setting a new foundation. And we all have to do that at times. Shift the way we think. Shift the way we speak. We all may have to be checked. As she stated, now you know you can't do that here the next time, but we're going to get through it this time. And we may have that conversation over and over again before we ever get through anything therapeutic. and be willing to put in the time.
Thank you for that, Minister Dean. What I'm hearing you say collectively as well, that this is a long-term strategy. This is a long-term game. And most of the time, we want popcorn. We want microwave popcorn at that. We don't even want the old-fashioned way. We want microwave popcorn answers. And there is a long-term strategy that has to go into place. We didn't get into these things overnight, and we're not coming out of them overnight. So when we see headlines and the numbers and the statistics about, you know, how many homicides we've had or how many murders we've had or, you know, semantics, we get into all of those things. When we see those things, and then there's such an outrage, but then when the numbers are low, doesn't necessarily mean that the issues and problems have all been resolved. And so everybody moves on to the next hot thing. That's the next thing that's going to catch the headline, the next thing that's going to be shareable, because we like to be social media vigilantes and advocates, and then nobody shows up to the meeting, and then nobody shows up to do the real work. So, Dr. McGuire, I'm going to kick it over to you over there. How can faith-based organizations, community-based organizations be more involved and intentional about being a part of the solution and not part of the re-traumatizing and some of the stigmas and some of the things that continue to perpetuate the problems and issues that we see in our community?
Have people like this in the congregation. You know, one of the things as a pastor and bishop, whatever, you know, one of the things that I've seen that has traumatized some people is our attempt to get them delivered this Sunday at the altar. And even though I believe in absolute deliverance, and I believe in the power of God, and I believe in instantaneous manifestation of redemption and full deliverance of a situation, if they leave that altar and that desire is still there because the flesh doesn't get saved, we need to help them understand that sometimes it's a process, and that the power to be delivered has been given to you. Now you have to get the practical application of walking that out. So I've always said, while you're doing the practical, be prayerful and take your spirituality into application of the secular. We are going to have to understand that from a triangular standpoint, there's going to have to be law enforcement, number one. That's it. There's going to be the RYDCs. They have to be there. And we can't over-spiritualize. The kid don't need to be in lockup. They need to be in church service. They need to be, oil need to get thrown on them. They need to fall out one time. They just need the Holy Ghost, you know. It's some folk with the Holy Ghost not doing it the right way. But it ain't blamed it on the Holy Ghost. But just because we have this duplicity, we are full of the Holy Ghost, but we still human. And our fits of carnality, they need to understand that we go through some of these things too, first of all. So we need to speak to them about that. The next part of that tripod is there needs to be violence reduction programs that continue to do the intervention piece, like Cure Violence. So while they are going through there needs to be mediation and monitoring. There needs to be modeling and mentoring. And so we have that. But I also believe that where a lot of times the body of Christ, institutions, I hate to say the church because I don't want the building to be the emphasis of church. Church is us. We are the church. That we understand the social determinants of health. That's why it's important to do trauma-informed care training in your congregation, mental health first aid in your congregation, so that, you know, gang training in your congregation, so some awareness can be apprehended, so that when we see these signs, you know, while we're praying and slinging oil on them while they sleep, we can also look at what's going on with them to give them some options and to get some people involved in them, community, that can help them make some better decisions. We got to go back to critical thinking. We got to go back to decision making. We got to go back to peer pressure. We got to go back to those things. I know that we need all the fancy names now in order to get the money from the grant, but it goes back to those simple fundamental things that those individuals are dealing with. It's peer pressure. Bottom line, he got a gun, I got to get a gun. He dissing me, I got to get ready. You know, so it's that same thing. Critical thinking, conflict resolution, anger management. You know, those are all the things when we were taught smart moves back in the 90s. Those are those same things that need to be instilled again. So when we look at the social determinants of health, we've got to open all of those pathways again to these young people. Help them to understand what it's going to mean to be healthy, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. I go to the dentist when my tooth hurt, but I don't want to go see a therapist when my mind hurts, when my brain hurts. And then sometimes in the black church, if you go get mental health treatment, you crazy. And so now we got a stigma. I can't go see a therapist. I went to private school with a lot of Jewish kids. Every last one of them had a therapist. Every last one of them had a therapist. And when I go on Facebook, 90% of them, doctors, lawyers, not because they were better than me, because I was there, I was thriving. But when they had a mental issue, they had somebody to talk to. We had to suppress it. And as a young boy, y'all can't cry neither. Don't cry. Don't you cry. That ain't, so all of this suppression and all these things that are on the inside of me, I think we have to go back in the church as faith-based organizations, as community organizations that love God. We're going to have to be practical in the way we apply some therapeutic things to help people get delivered. And as much intervention, I know you all heard this before, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. And so we've got to go back. We can't wait till they get off the stoop at 18, 17, 16. We've got to start again at 9 and 10. And so we've got to marry intervention and prevention again. We've got to bring a covenant back to that. It can't be one or the other. It has to be both and. And so that's the approach that we're trying to use. That's the approach that I have personally to try to make a difference. It's not the approach, but it's an approach. We have seen some positive results in our catchment area on the west side. We've had very hot area, always been, but we've had about 270 days without a killing. We've had about 170 days without a bullet-to-bone shooting until most recently when one of our most familiar, notorious individuals came back to town. Now they're shooting up everywhere. But those are the triumphs you have to have. And I think something that you said earlier, we have to celebrate that. And we have to celebrate the people that are doing the work rather than criticizing them. We have to put dollars to these documents. We always say documents bring dollars. Well, we got to put some dollars to the documents. If it's documented, if it's happening, if it's working, we've got to begin to spend that. You can't keep asking everybody to volunteer. All your good volunteers are either retired or they're already excellent workers who work 40 hours a week already. They have a heart for the community like Judge, and they have families, and they're tired. So you're going to get the best out of giving somebody some employment to do this work. You couple that with volunteers, and I think we'll begin to see a boom.
So practical application to go along with our religious beliefs. So we're not just coming in and shouting and screaming and jumping, but we're making sure that we're connecting people to the resources necessary that they can have real conversations and get the real practical application of what's needed to really deal with what's happening to me on the inside. And not only you mentioned something, Bishop, about I'm going to think that I'm crazy. Not only you going to have that stigma of thinking that you're crazy if you go to church and then you say you went to therapy, but you don't have faith. Because if you have faith in God and you take it to God in prayer, then you wouldn't need a therapist. It's obviously you got sin in your life somewhere is the reason why you're going through what you're going through.
But they got faith in Hennessy though. Faith and bear aspirin. Yeah.
Yes, while we're taking our blood pressure medicine, but I don't have faith. But it's very important that we help to remove that stigma about mental illness and mental health in the Black community. That is so very, very critical for us healing our community. Mr. Williams, I want to come back to you about some of the challenges that you continue to face. I know you mentioned about the individuals the students supposed to be there with you 1 or 2 days, and it's leading over into 60, 70 days in the capacity level there. But what are some of the other challenges that you face as the regional detention center that you feel as if the community could help you out more with? I know, the funding and all of that pretty much out of our hands except for when it's time to go to the polls. However, but what are some things that we can do as a community to better support both our regional and our detention center and our development center?
I think one of the main things is to show that you care. Because you'd be surprised a lot of times by a lot of the kids that come in, they just really want to know, do you really care? I hear you saying that, man. Everybody said that all before. I done heard it all. I tell them a lot of times, I say, I need you to help me hire some people because you can weed them out. The kids can weed them out because they see, oh, you don't even want to do this job. You just trying to get a check, man. You don't care about us, man. You just here to come in here for 8 hours and get up out of here. But when you come through for these kids, you see it's almost like a light bulb go off, like, man, you actually did what you said you were going to do? A lot of times, they're not having that in their home life with the people that's supposed to love them and supposed to care about them. And so they're going to get it somewhere else. And so when they come to us, it's just almost, you having to almost break them down like, look, man, I can tell you I'm a director. I've been doing this for how many years? Like, I don't care nothing about that, man. Let me see what you about. Okay, you're going to do what you say you're going to do. You're going to look out for me. You're going to take care. Oh, Miss Will, I got you, man. I'll never tell the kids I'm going to do something and don't come through with it. Because I told you, man. Because they've seen that so many times before in their life. So that's what they're looking at when you come in. You just like everybody else, man. Why am I supposed to listen to you because you got on this tag or you got on this title, whatever? You just like the rest of them. My mom used to say that same stuff, man. My dad used to say that same stuff. So a lot of times it's the involvement from the families. We have visitation. A lot of times we have kids that gets none. They can't even call home and nobody won't pick up the phone. Because when they call, like, look, I got my break. You locked up. Go ahead, do your thing. I'll see you when you get out. And mad when they got to come and pick them up. I feel bad for them, but you also have some parents that are faithfully coming to visitation, coming to see their kids, coming to the screenings, coming to do what they got to do so the kids know that they're cared for. I think another thing is just, as I think you was speaking on before, having people in place. A lot of times we say people out of the weeds. The stuff that y'all did, that's too far down the weeds. People in high positions feel like they don't need to deal with that type of stuff because that's down in the weeds. I'm up here. But down in the weeds is where you find the stuff at. Okay, so I may get a phone call from Judge Young. Rominsky, tell me about this kid, got so-and-so. Oh, hey, and we had a conversation while I'm riding. I tell her, because she's looking at what can I do best for this child. Everybody else out there saying lock them up. She want to know, is that going to be the best thing for that kid? Tell me what you think. I value your opinion, Rominsky. You got him. At the same time, I can make a phone call, Dominique, or Dominique calling me. Hey, Ro, hey, I just had somebody got in one of my boys, that someone, hey, coming through, look out for him. So when they get intake, I'm back there at the door. What's up? What's going on? Hey, I'm just checking on you. What's your name? I already know about what's going on with them. I know the whole rundown before they get there. But I need to make that introduction to them, let them know you okay right here. You safe, man. We're going to work with you. So I think having people in places that can really make a difference, that can really connect the dots, that can get some different results is one of the biggest things that we can really do. Because right now, everybody's saying, these kids crazy, man. Hey, y'all need to do something with these kids. Okay, they do something with them for a little while, but guess what? They coming back. Everybody come home. Most people always come home. Some people don't want to, but I say this, they coming back, and they coming back into your community. So if you haven't poured into them, then you're going to get somebody that's empty and looking to fill their cup up off of the stuff in your house. That's how I look at it when I'm dealing with them. This could be my kid. So I always want to deal with them. And Courtney was talking earlier before we got started. I always treated everybody kid if that was my child, because you would never know when you would see these kids again, their parents or whatever. And so you want that encounter to be something positive that you had, that you was pouring into them. But if they don't have that, they have no regard for you. And it's easy for them to do what they do, because you just one of them. You may say, I'm not one of them. You just one of them. You're doing the same thing that all my ops was doing. So it's easy for me to treat you like one, to go into your place, to go into your car. And so I got a wife, I got a mother, I live in this community. I take ownership in that. I'm proud of my cousin, my young cousin. He taking his thing and running with it with the things he's doing. I'm proud of him because we come from this. Fort Hill, East Side, we came up in this. It's a little bit different then. But right now, we really need those people that care. We really need them to reach out and touch those kids right now, because right now it's almost to the fact like, hey, I don't care, you don't care.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I want you to be thinking about what you have heard these panelists say and the things that we have been discussing. It's an area that I take near and dear to my heart of what happens in this community because of some of the things that happen to me in this community. I worked at the YDC. When I worked at the YDC, I was a correctional officer and then a correctional sergeant. And once I got there and I saw that the kids, they get clothes. Soon as they get there, they get clothes, they get underwear, they get deodorant, they get all of those things. And then they eat 3 times a day. They're going to go to school. They're going to have playtime. We're going to make sure they have some activities that they can do in the cottages. And me looking back as a young girl who was coming from a broken home, if I had ever made it to the YDC while my parents were sick, I would have worked hard to get back every single time. I would have wanted to go back because I wasn't eating at home. I wasn't being seen about at home. No one was making sure that I went to school every day. And so it could have been very easily have been me. And so it's important for us. One of the things that I hear or get social media posts or hear, these kids is crazy. These kids then lost their mind. These kids are nothing like what we were when we were growing up. I'm thinking to myself, well, who raised them? Who raised them? We raised them. These is our babies. We raised them. It's not because I have 5 sons. I have 5 sons. Like I mentioned, 2 of them have been shot. One of them was standing before the federal court judge. And it was only because of the work that I had done in this community. And I'm not the mama that's gonna lie for you, so don't ask me. Don't ask me. Don't ask me. But I will speak up and say, because it's some systemic stuff that keeps happening as well. That's systemic. It's not just the behaviors that we have. There's some systemic issues of poverty and lack of investment in neighborhoods and other things that are actually happening that contribute, not all the reason, but it is major contributing factors to what we see. Guns come from somewhere. They don't grow in gardens. They're not growing in gardens. And all of these guns, they're not just being stolen from the pawn shop and all of those things. Some of these things are being fed into our community. That's a whole nother topic and conversation to be able to have. But it's important that we hear what is saying. What's being said is that we need each other in this community to turn it around. Because as Bishop said, some of us is not tired. We're not tired, Bishop. We tired. You gotta take that aura off. We tired. We've been walking and talking and doing everything that we possibly can. Everybody gets tired. Everybody gets weary. And it's hard to stay engaged. But as what Mr. Williams said, I see it as my children. That's right. The future of our community is in these kids. We are not going to be here always. We can't hold on to the seats like the members of Congress do. We just, they're going to take it on to the grave with them. In our local community, we got to have some leaders. We got to raise up the next generation of leaders, and we got to be able to see the message in the mess that we see. We got to believe, and I'm not going to start preaching, that it's some treasure that's hidden in these earthen vessels, and that's us. That's us. So I want to get some thoughts, some questions, some feedback from some of you all before we go into our last few questions and comments. So if you have a question or comment, raise your hand and someone will bring you the mic.
I'll start off if you mind.
He's gonna bring you the mic because we're streaming. We want to make sure that everybody hear you. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, first and foremost, thank you all for being here, correct? Williams, Mr. Williams?
Correct.
So the first question I would like to ask you, when we look at the young men and women that come into the system, and you cultivate those relationships, over the time that you've been there, what does the recidivism look like, right? How often do they return back to the system? That's one. Second, when you have conversations one-on-one with them, what is normally, right, when we talk about gun violence, what is normally the cause of those individuals' reaction as to why they committed those crimes?
Okay. First of all, the recidivism rate is high. I don't have the numbers with me right now, but we see them come back. And the interesting or the sad part is that when they come back, just like she was saying, they happy to be back. Don't miss that. They're happy to be back. Hey, what's up, Mr. Williams? You remember? I remember you, man. You were just here a couple weeks ago. You were right back. And so you might get everybody to come in, oh man, this kid can't stay, he stay getting locked up. But guess what? It's a reason why that child is happy to be back detained with loss of freedom because of the things that she mentioned. Man, I know I'm going to get 3 hots plus snacks. I'm going to get heat in the winter. I'm going to get air in the summer. If I'm sick, somebody's going to take care of me. If I'm hearing voices, they telling me to do this stuff again, somebody's going to talk to me. Even if I sell some wolf tickets that I can't cash, somebody's going to save me. Somebody come break that up before I get my brakes beat off. That ain't happening out there. Okay, so you think then like, well, what is it? You're not getting any of that stuff at home, is that you're so happy to come here. So that's the recidivism piece. And the second part of your question is why, when you talk to them, why do they say they did what they did? Why did you have to use a gun? Why you do this? From just my experience from talking to these kids over these years, and it's getting increasingly more now, gangs. I'm not gonna drop everything on gangs, but they tell me I put that on this, I put that on this, on my set. I ain't going for nothing. I'm like, so what happened? He said, F my homeboy, and he dead. I said, so then what? I pulled a stick. I did what I had to do. I said, so you kill him, and now you're going to spend the rest of your days in jail for something he said about your homeboy that's already been shot and killed. And it makes perfect sense to them. I'm sitting there listening. I'm not, hey, man, you crazy. I'm listening to them, but I'm like, they are dead for real about this thing, people. And if you don't know it by now, if you in this area, if you in this town, you in this city, please believe that these kids are all in on it. They're going to have several different names. They may be talking to you, talking about it right in front of you, around you, whatever. You might not catch it, but they dead serious about it. Kids that leave my facility, I know that's probably going to get into some stuff when they leave. I follow them on Snapchat, not Snapchat, I follow them on Instagram. I don't do the Snapchat. I follow them on Instagram. And have we been in the bed before, just laying out, I'm looking at, I said, this boy right here was just out there with me. And he already on a live with 2 guns, talking about what they're gonna do, and you got 50 of them on the thing, so you ain't gonna do nothing with that. So now somebody get disrespected by you saying something on the live, and now it's for real. I gotta spin the block and go get you. I said, a couple days, you're gonna hear about it. Couple days, double shooting, 1 homicide. He was him. So what I say about why they say what they do, a lot of times it just seems like they disrespected me and that's all I know to do. Or they said something wrong and I ain't doing no talking, I don't do none of that. And so the value of my freedom in my life or whatever, as far as they're talking about themselves, it really doesn't matter to them at that time. Then they'll sit around and talk about real life years that they facing, and I'm sitting at the just having lunch and sitting there listening, like, yeah, man, I got 20, man, I got to do 15. Yeah, I'm facing 30, but I'm probably going to do 20. Man, you 15 years old. And it's like, nothing. It's real.
Judge Young, you want to add anything to that?
I wanted to say about the recidivism piece that we are not always talking about new charges when Rominski sees them again. Sometimes like they're released like on an ankle monitor and they'll violate the ankle monitor, because I do not play with them. But the ankle monitor, I just don't. So that it may be that they're on the same charge. They just continue to get, locked up for violating the orders of the court. The other thing, that I wanted to say about, on the gangs and things like that, as far as the gun charges, you know that's what y'all be telling them to do, right? Y'all tell them don't let nobody disrespect you. Y'all tell them if somebody mess with your brother or your family, that is FOE, it's family over everything. So they're protecting their own. That's what we teach them. And then we be surprised, we act crazy when they in court. I don't know where they got it from. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. That's why they got off the bus stop and they jumped, oh boy. And then because the parents be worried about, well, what happened to them? Because they was in on it too. You ain't worried about your child. Because we teaching them that that's what they're supposed to do and that we turn to violence to resolve our conflicts. When in the reality, violence begets violence. And if you got beef with that person, they got beef with them over and over. They stay with beef. And they just keep going back and forth and people just keep getting killed. And that's what happens. And by the time they get killed and they be like, oh, they disrespecting my dead homie, I be like, I didn't even know that boy was dead. He was just in court. Right. I mean, that's how quick it go. And then when somebody get locked up, it be somebody new from the neighborhood that fill their place. They just get younger and younger. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I was hoping we could just go a little deeper on the recidivism concept. One of the common things that you will hear that, and I think you just might have mentioned it, Dr. Williams, that a lot of times the youth are excited to get back because of the conditions of the jail, and I get it, that the root cause of poverty has them living in horrible conditions before they get there. But as it relates to the recidivism, on the flip side, the Bibb County LEC is known as a dangerous place. People are scared to go there, and it still has a very high recidivism rate. And I was hoping for some feedback on, I guess, best practices on reducing recidivism or what's going on there, because I know like the trope of the facility being nice and the idea if you make it harsher and take things away that they may do better is something that I hear a lot. But it doesn't hold up to when you look at the Fulton County Jail, the Bibb County Jail, and people still going in and out every day. So
you talking about two different things though, because where Rominski is, that's run by the state, okay? That's run by Department of Juvenile Justice. Where you have county jails that are run by the county and are run by your sheriff. So you need to talk to your sheriff about the conditions of that. You also we have children versus adults. Our job, my job, is to make sure that they never see the inside of an adult jail. Because certainly when they do, if they have the comparison of RYDC versus the jail, they'd be like, you was right. It is not the same, okay? And see, people do not care when you're an adult. They don't want to know how you're doing. They don't want to know, is your mama coming to visit you? They don't care. They really don't. And so that is, I see that as part of our jobs in the juvenile, justice system, because they are children and I'm going to treat them like a child. But I mean, that's just as far as the recidivism, it is concerned. But I don't know, Rominski, you may have something else you want to say about that.
I just want to I guess, comment on what you said, because that is a connection, if you will, with the kids that I have. Juveniles, a lot of time has been following the shots that's being called by
An adult.
people in LEC. Yeah, they sent the hit. They made the call. You got old boy named Bellevue. He just came in there. Oh, okay, I need y'all to handle that. And they doing it on go, not asking any question. And from the ones that I've talked to that are waiting on birthdays, a lot of times they've been sentenced as an adult. They're waiting on their 17th birthday, and then someone will come picking them up. If they haven't been sent to a prison or whatnot, they'll be going down to LEC, and it's almost like a graduation. I got on that level, because before they leave, they be doing things or being disruptive. Man, send me Connie, man. Go on, send me the Connie. I need to get there so I can get my points up, my rep up, my clout up, if you will. So get what? I've been there now. And when they get there, they see everybody that was out there. Some of them missing some teeth now. Some of them ain't moving like they used to move when they was at the RYDC, because it's grown man business now. Okay? They talk all that talk around their peers, because their peers, you the big dog. But when you go into somewhere else, it's a whole nother situation. So I say that to say, it seems like a lot of them, like, I want to get there. It's like I'm going to do everything I can almost to get there. Sometimes it seems that way. So there is a connection, but like she said, we're state, and so that recidivism is going to be a little bit different, but that's a link that I see, I've seen over the years, and it's getting more and more stronger.
Speak on that. Clinically speaking, as you were just stating, when they're coming to the end of that term, now they're trying to get their minds right. So because they know that they're going into a place that is much worse. And when the individuals are now in the LEC, then the only way that we're going to be able to shift that change is A, get them the therapy that they need while they're in there, because sometimes that's the only time that they're going to have access to it. B, when they come out, being able to change the environment that they are going into. If you are not changing the environment that you're going into and that environment is staying the same, the likelihood of you doing something different is very slim. So being able to offer better programming for them when they're coming out. Being able to go into the community as Cure Violence is doing now and educating the community. We've got to take responsibility for that. Parents taking responsibility for their children, and parents actually being the adults. You are modeling behavior. Being able to challenge saying words like crazy. These children are not crazy. These adults are not crazy. They are troubled. They're traumatized. So being able to challenge that language so that we can shift the mentality of it. It can be done. Again, this is a long-term effort. There's no popcorn solution, and there is no magic pill. So we have to get in there, do the work, and continuously do it.
I was just going to mention now, I'm not from the Macon area, but dealing with 3 different states, Minnesota, Ohio, and now Florida, we cannot confuse ourselves that the criminal justice system has some financial ramifications, and that there are some opportunities for money to be made by individuals who are being incarcerated. And I think when we look at that pipeline situation, and it's not conspiracy theory, it's fact that they are not given the coping skills once they come out to maintain their citizenship and freedom. And so if my behaviors don't change, then I'm gonna, what do we say in mental health? It's insane to do the exact same thing and expect different results. And so I'm not being rehabilitated. And even if there was an opportunity to rehabilitate, if I was never habilitated and now given the coping skills, there's nothing to re. And so I'm going back to the same people, the same environment, the same family, and I'm going to repeat some of those same things. When we talk about the church, it's got to be scripture and skills. And so I'm not getting that skill set. And one of the things that's missing now that I heard was there at one time, or when the word penitence and penitentiary first started, there was some bridge programming. 30 days, 60 days before I was getting ready to get out, 60 to 90 days after I got out, there was some bridge programming that gave me some skill sets that helped me maintain my freedom. Well, that's gone. And even on probation and parole, the states that really still implement that, you're just sent out, and the two requirements is no dirty urine and a job. I don't have to really finish all those other things, and depending on my probation officer and his caseload, he can't chase me around, see if I went to anger management class, see if I got my GED. He can't do that. If you're staying out of trouble, don't have a dirty urine, which we all know, they know how to fix that, and I got a job, which a lot of people are just giving people jobs, and to some degree, we are doing some disservices, because we got some agencies are giving you minimum wage jobs, but really you just volunteering to help keep you out of jail, because we feel bad for you, and we love Aunt May and Grandma so-and-so now, so we're going to do something for you not to go back to jail. But I think the bridge programming is at that recidivism piece, beyond what they've said as absolute truth about going up, getting the clout. And that's why I always go back to the gang awareness piece is huge. Because when we think of gangs, we think of Crips and Bloods and Gangster Disciples. Those are the only ones we really think of, and we call those gangs. But it's all the hybrid gangs in the community that's dangerous and terrible, because these young people are trying to make a name for themselves by doing the most public thing that they can to get a name. And that's when it's dangerous. But we don't know how to recognize it. School officials don't know what to say. Family members don't know what's happening on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, X, whatever it's going to be called. We don't even know what to recognize and change your behavior that's saying, wait a minute, why you don't want to play ball no more? When you start wearing that color every day? Why you don't go to the family functions? What happened with you running with little Ray them? You don't run with Ray them no more? So looking at some of these things will help us, and even when people get out, will help us in with that recidivism, but we don't see it, and of course they don't want it to change. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, especially in the states where it's been made privatized. I mean, because now my commodity is you coming back or that little girl's womb. Those become my commodities now, because I got a 3 to 30 year plan, because if I just bought some prisons and I want to leave these to my family, I need these people to come back to those little girls, start having more babies. And now, because it ain't just the little boys no more, it's the wombs. See, so now I'm going to keep all these little girls on welfare. I'm going to give them more money if they have more babies. I'm going to keep them less educated, because in 15 to 20 years, that's my commodity. So for 15 years, I'm going to keep these coming back, and then in 15 years, I got a new one coming in. And so it becomes, now it's a game. And what we got to realize is we got to get out the game. I can't keep dependent that there's going to be this many of this type of woman behind that bench. See, when this woman sees the hair, the bonnet, the house shoes, and the no bra, she understanding that this kid in trouble. Let me help him and let me talk to her. The next person that sees that woman come in, say, oh, no, this little boy ain't going to be nothing. 10 years. See, they start sentencing on who comes with them. And so now this is why these intervention programs become key, because if we don't go help represent, we in trouble.
We're going to take a couple of more.
Okay, I didn't want to stand up, but my son was a victim of gun violence here in Macon, February the 25th. He was killed in the Pleasant Hill area in a bucket of blood.
Our condolences.
So, just like you said, so I had the opportunity to have, serve, I'm not saying service, but help in being able to participate in some of the things that Cure Violence has in the Pleasant Hill area. So I do go to like the Booker T. Washington Center, and I haven't started counseling yet, I have another, my son was 20 years old, the one that got killed. I have another son who's 22. Like I said, so I did have, like I said, the privilege to meet them. And also, I also substitute teach at L.H. Williams in Pleasant Hill. So I did get a chance to meet a lot of kids before that happened to my son. But like, I did continue, like I said, to substitute teach after that happened to my son or whatever. But I hadn't been back. But I also still try to, I'm bringing myself back to, you know, basically, you know, try to go back in the community, even though we're not from the Pleasant Hill community, we're from the Bellevue community. But just because of I built the bond with a lot of those kids when I did do substitute teaching at L.H. Williams. And since that happened to my son, you know, I have talked, you know, me and some of my best friends, we talked, and they asked me questions like, what would make you feel better to, you know, make you feel better by that happening to your son? I said, well, you know what? I talked to a lot of the kids, because most of the kids, I wrote our age classes at L.H. Williams, so most of them I did talk to and get a chance to get, you know, like a little insight of like things that they had going on. And I could also see a lot of stuff they had going on by me working with children all my life. We growed up around children, that's all we know is children or whatever. So with that being said, I was like, maybe I can talk to some of the children while they're younger, like the kids that are in our YDC. You know, let them hear my story of the things that happen in the community that are, you know, basically, like I said, shattered parents or whatever, you know, stuff that's going on, hurtful stuff that weird that I'm having to experience because of, you know, stuff, the lack of, you know, just knowledge of, you know, anything. So, you know, basically, like he was saying, what things that you can help with as far as with the kids that are in there. I wouldn't mind visiting a child that does not have visitation. And, you know, I have did foster care. I started, I've been working daycare all my life. We grew up in the daycare environment. So, and I did foster care starting in 2018. And most of the, they give us a preference of kids that we want to service. And my preference were males because I had 2 sons. And I feel like, I'm stronger with males. And I have had some kids to come in my house. I had one young man came in my house. He wasn't from Bibb County. He was from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He was brought from the YDC to my house or whatever with the ankle monitor on. You know, and just listening to the kids after I do my introduction when they come in, you know, they have been through a lot of trauma in their life, childhood or whatever. And that's when I learned about therapy. Because the agency that I work for, all the kids have to go through therapeutic training. Like therapeutic, you know, because when we was in school, it was just called counseling. But all of them had to have therapeutic, you know, like so many months. I took them to therapy. But then when COVID hit, the therapy started coming into the home, servicing the kids individually in their own space. So, you know, like I said, I would like to talk to the kids at the YDC and share my story if I could possibly, or, you know, I have reached out to some of the high school, the only high school that I actually called was Southwest. And I did talk to the assistant principal and let her know, you know, my story or whatever, because I have nephews to go there, and some of the things that, you know, basically like, I had a story share on 13 WMAZ. I know I'm jumping around from different things, but it's kind of hard to talk about, you know, the situation as far as my son, but I just jump around from different subjects from time to time. But his birthday is Friday. He would have been 21 had he been here or whatever. Like I say, he hung in different areas. It was always just me and them, really, as them growing up. So they never my kids never really went through anything as far as like, you know, like, just like hardship or whatever. Just like when we were growing up, we never really went through hardship. If we did, we didn't know about it. Cause my mama, if she did, you know, go through something, you know, she hid it so well till we didn't know or whatever. So that's why most of them, when we growed up, me and my siblings, we kind of take close the kids that are individuals that have been through hardship. Like we were brought up to never look down on anybody, you know. So,
Jessica,
you know,
thank you.
it bothers me to actually like see, you know, different stuff going on in the community, because it is, and the numbers are going up.
They are. Thank you, Jessica, for being transparent, open, and honest. That's my cousin as well, so it's my family as well. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I mention is that they, at both the RYDC and the YDC, that they have volunteer services, and all we have to do is make sure that we get, I know the volunteer coordinator, and then over at the YDC, and then Mr. Williams can make sure that you're, you know, connected with the volunteer services coordinator, because we definitely need more people to come and participate and to be consistent in the ways that you already have. Yeah, so we're gonna take, who else had their hand? So we're gonna take two, right here and right here.
Okay.
Okay.
We've touched a little bit about some services that would be considered reentry services, but what does reentry really look like for someone who has been at the RYDC and is being released? Is there a specific, like he talked about bridge services, which is like transitional housing, things like that, but do we have that in place in our area for RYDC? Or what type of plan what type of reentry plan is put in place as the kids transition out into the community again?
For that question, in the RYDCs, by it being a short-term, supposed to be a short-term program, kids won't get a big fleshed out reentry plan, but what they do is they have treatment team meetings on the same youth that come from every discipline that's at that facility, including the parents, including community leaders or whoever. So you have a room full of individuals that come in to talk about what's best for this child, even if it's something that he does not agree with, but this is what's gonna be in your best interest. And at YDCs, it's a whole process for reentry that they get them set up with, if they want to continue their education out of school, help them get jobs when they leave, even independent living if they need that. So that's a program that's in place, definitely for the YDCs. Okay.
I saw another hand. What's that? Okay.
Yes, my question was kind of like hers, but I was thinking about something that he said about the ounce of prevention being more than a pound of cure, I think, or something like that. Mm-hmm. So what my question was, not necessarily with the reentry, but I know you're the director of the RYDC and you're like the judge. So at that point, the kids are already in trouble. Well, my question is there anything that you all can do? And I know y'all hands might be tied because y'all are working for the state or whatnot. But as one of the kids that came out of the YDC and progressed to the county jail and the prison, my question is there anything that you all can do? Are there any programs for prevention? Like I was speaking to one of your officers, Michael Berrien. I spoke to him last week, and he was talking about coming down there to speak to the kids down there. But are there any programs like with the Cure Violence? This is my first meeting coming up here. I saw LJ posted on Facebook, and I'm always out of town, so I never get to come. But what is the actual the boots on the ground. What programs to cure violence? What are y'all doing outside? Because I don't want to call y'all like armchair intellectuals, just people that just sit around and talk about, hey, the kids are doing this, they doing that. But like, what are the programs that y'all actually implementing besides like, you know, the meetings, or is that something that the state is doing? Are y'all working with anyone with prevention or whatnot?
Bishop, can you talk a little bit about Cure Violence model?
Well, I can talk about the Cure Violence model, but I know he's talking specifically about the Macon area, probably, but the Cure Violence model, along with other violence prevention models, we are an intervention initiative because of the contagion and the epidemic of gun violence. So there's no question that Cure Violence is in the intervention business. There's no question about that. We're dealing with high-risk individuals that we know are going to be the perpetrator or the victim of gun violence because of gunplay. There's criteria for our participants, so there's no question that we're in the intervention business. But a part of that, that's why I said that marriage has to come, but a part of that is trying to also hook up with schools and other agencies that are part of prevention so that we can go back, tell our story, help them to understand what's going on, connect them to wraparound services, get them connected to some of those things that's going to help prevent them from falling into that category. But Cure Violence isn't the prevention mechanism. I mean, I can be honest about that. It is the intervention mechanism that has prevention tools. But the prevention mechanism that you're looking for is going to come in some other community programs and programming that we've got to find in the community that's going to be willing to get at-risk children, those that are vulnerable risk children according to the CDC, and some of those other risk factors that would put them in a position where if something doesn't happen now, they're going to cross over into that next phase. Now, I will be honest in saying that Cure Violence is honest, the global model is honest in saying that we are an intervention model because we're going at high risk. These people are already engaged. And so, but you got to have that too, you know, so, but that's that model. But the intervention model, the prevention model is a whole different mechanism in my mind. There has to be a marriage and a bridge there. And so they would probably have to speak to Macon and the counties that are local.
Yeah, and we have way too many programs. We don't have enough hands to the plow in those programs. Most of those nonprofit organizations are struggling, not necessarily funding. Funding is an issue, but we need manpower. You have 1 or 2, 3 people trying to do all of the work. So you have Fathers Among Men, Teens to Queens. I could go on and on and on and on of those programs are being involved. And then you have programs that are within the school systems that are there for prevention, anger management, a whole lot of other things. Again, it's the environment that the kids have to go back into, so you need additional reinforcements over and over, and many positive people as you possibly can to have in that child's life. Because I can speak from the perspective, when my parents were sick and they were on drugs, I still had to go back to that house or be taken out of that house. So what we received at school, what happened, and all of those things that provided additional safety for us while we were at school or at programs or what have you, the fact of the matter, we still had to go back to that house. So as many people that can be involved and be a positive influence in that child's life or adult's life, understand that. Adults need mentors, adults need coaching, adults need therapy. Adults are the ones that are raising these kids. So we want to bring this to a close and allow our panelists to close with 30 seconds to a minute, and then I'll close.
Shanita. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I can't help it, man. I can't help it. All right, let me there we go. No, I didn't want to say nothing too much. I was just pleased, hoping to God, all right? He was asking about services. For one, I'll just say this real quick. Shout out to our brother Frank. He's our community engagement coordinator. He does an awesome job of connecting all of our participants to these wraparound services and to these other organizations, partner organizations that we have. So we definitely work hand in hand with our participants and, you know, any and everybody in the neighborhood that needs resources. Frank, and as well as all of us, we do a tremendous job at doing that, all of us. I definitely say we all do that. You know, Courtney definitely on the female, for any mother, female, she is, look at her, she number one. But let me say this, okay, because
they have some. We went to Jacksonville. They had a Cure Violence Macon team go down to Jacksonville to visit these brothers. My brother right here and the bishop down in Jacksonville, and they have something that we came back so excited about. Like, to me, well, I think that we definitely need to recreate something here in Macon. That's kind of why Brother Pastor Dominique invited Mr. Bishop. But can you just real quick, please, tell them about the Potter's House? It was the church. The church created a whole situation down in Jacksonville where they have a bowling alley, they have a gym, they have a nursery, they got a soul food restaurant, they have numerous outreach services, right? But can you please just talk about how that came about and how y'all had that situation in Jacksonville and how that could potentially help, even when they talk about recidivism and things of that nature, and how the participants can get involved in that whole process?
Well, glory to God. I think Bishop Von McLaughlin and his wife had a vision of just ministering to the total man and understanding that, again, we want to help our mantra is we want to help as many people as we can before Jesus returns. We know everybody's not going to get saved, but we want to help as many people as we can before Jesus returns. And so the vision was to just give people an opportunity to enjoy and to receive services on a consistent basis in one area. So if there was something that didn't seem right to Bishop and Lady Narlene, like the school system, so they started a school. When you didn't have anywhere to go where you could eat after church and just have a good time, so they took Mama's recipes and they started a restaurant, started a bank, started a bus depot, and it's just one thing after another, a dancing studio, and mental health assistance and GED assistance, and just finding people who came into the ministry who had a heart to do some things, and then volunteerism turned into jobs, and then the mall became a creation of an incubator and a hub for small businesses. And I think that's how it really started. Buildings were bought, small businesses came in, and none of the businesses had to pay rent. If you were a tither, you believed in giving back, you didn't have to pay rent, and you had a hub, you had an office space, you had what you needed, and it just grew and grew and grew. And then eventually you've got the restaurant, you've got businesses renting space in the mall now, you've got the bowling alley, you've got the business center, and it's also a FOC to where financial literacy and all those things are available to you. And so when I came to Jacksonville, when I moved, I have the Potter's House in Dayton, Ohio. So when I moved down from there to Jacksonville, my vision to this vision was to expand some of those services to the street. And so the kind of the connection that Bishop and I said, you handle the palace, I'll handle the pavement. One of the things that he did early in ministry was the Jacksonville Journey, being out on the street, working with Mad Dads, doing some of those things. But because the church grew and became what is known as a mega church, he no longer has that ability to be out there. So my job then, as the director of discipleship, outreach, and evangelism, was to kind of blow on the flame of that vision and get back out there and to take the gospel to the pavement in non-conventional ways. So I don't try to preach the gospel as much in the street. I try to live the gospel. And then if somebody says, well, how? Then ha-ha. Now I've got my opportunity, and I'm kind of cutthroat about it. So if you ask me, I'm going to tell you. He lives, So, but it's a blessing because this is me. So I do have the collar and the chain, but that's for what you need to see in the palace every now and then. But every day I try to just live out this redemption. I'm not afraid to remember 419-56061. It's been years, but I won't ever forget it when I gave somebody the opportunity not to call me by my name. I'm very grateful for the grace of God. And I think that's how the Potter's House was breathed. We were grateful. Bishop was grateful. He wanted to give back. I mean, he gives his testimony. He OD'd twice. He grew up without his father in his home and never remembers his father ever calling his first name. He just goes on and on and on with the testimony. The toughest area in Jacksonville, 45th and Moncrief, over in Magnolia Gardens, and it just he gives his testimony. He was Hennessy or Jack Daniels in one hand and marijuana in the other, and listening to Prince sing Party Like It's 1999, having a week-long party. He asked God to save him, and he did. And it's been that dynamic. But I think out of that transformation was birthed. And he's a son of transformation, and that's what you see at the Potter's House. And you ask him how he did it, it was God. If he'd have had the blueprint, it wouldn't have been God. But step along the way, obedience allowed it to come into fruition. But I think the bottom line was wanting to serve people at whatever point in life they were. So we have the biggest clothing ministry on the west side, but we've also been the #1 prison ministry in the state of Florida. So on both ends of that spectrum, we feed about 200 people twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday, with boxes of food. We've become the #1 food distributor on the west side. But he's also the #1 employer on the west side of Jacksonville with over 250 employees. He has 2 thriving restaurants making over $3 million apiece. He doesn't take a salary from that because that wasn't what it was intended to be. The fact that it became a soul food bistro icon was just a oops, you know, but he was hiring ex-felons. He was hiring individuals and people that don't look like the church folk. That's who we hire. I mean, but we try to grow them into being experts at what they do. We try to make sure that they get the skill set along with the scripture. And a lot of people say, well, all the church folk work all the businesses. Man, half the people that leave on Friday, we don't see them again until Monday. You know, but then some people do gravitate and become a part of it. So, but I think what we do now for the violence prevention and that transformation is really dear to Bishop's heart because of the gratefulness that he has about transformation. So we're in the prisons, we're in the youth facilities, we're in the women's prison, and we're on the block. And that's my job, is to be on the block and to get as many people out there as possible dealing with all type of, you know, things like from human trafficking to drug abuse and cure violence, dealing with the gun violence. So that's just where we are. And I think, you know, some things can be replicated. Some things got to be the plan of God for people's lives. Sometimes you have to be careful trying to duplicate what God didn't tell you to do, because if he tells you to water the flowers and he tells Bishop McLaughlin to have 12 restaurants, the reward is the same. You know, and I think we understand that, so we're not trying to be anybody else. We're just being who we are. But he's always willing to share the model, and but we're just grateful. And you know, just listening to what you all have said, man, I've absorbed so much. I can't wait to get back, talk to Lady, talk to individuals. We've got people in law and a couple of judges that hang around the sanctuary. I'm not going to just have a panel. I'm going to have a consortium. And so we're going to get together on a regular basis to talk about how I've already just kind of got that rolling in my mind, that how we can just come together and start making some change in Jacksonville, Florida. So.
Amen. Amen. We're gonna give our panelists 30 seconds to a minute to go ahead and have their closing thoughts or comments or anything that you want pertinent to leave with us and those that are viewing us and streaming in. We'll start right here and just go down.
Okay, what I just want to leave you with is just to know that we do have young people in this community that are not lost, that are not to be thrown away. We got a lot of them that's hurting. And if you don't know how to deal with hurt, you do what you think you should do. And a lot of times that's been their motto is, I'm hurt, I'm gonna hurt someone. Someone said that hurt people hurt people. And so I just want to say that knowing that we have those type of kids around here that it's not a lost cause, we have a lot of individuals around here as communities. We just got to pour into these kids. And if it's a lot of times, sometimes I feel like it's almost a blessing that they come to me because I know you're not getting shot today.
Today, that's right.
Tomorrow, as long as you're here, I know you're not getting shot. I know you're going to be safe in here. And while you're here, how about let me hit you with some of this? Some stuff that you can take with you. So if we all can do that, the Macon RYDC is where I'm director of, and I'm always open to anybody in the community. Contact us. You're welcome to come out. Sometimes all it takes is a conversation. just, you took, where you work? You don't work for DJJ? No, I'll come out here for you, son. What's going on with you? So a lot of times that's all it takes to make a turn, okay? So I appreciate being a part of this panel.
The words that I'd like to leave is today you may plant a seed, tomorrow you may water, the next day you may pull up a weed. The way I believe God will do the increase. If your child is in any type of corrective facility, you seek some assistance also. Go to counseling. Go to counseling, not to your pastor. And I love pastors and ministers, I'm one myself. Go to someone with some letters behind their names where they can give you some clinical assistance. And I'm not saying that's the only way to receive help, but it's a great start to it. Get some therapy, people. You can have God and a therapist.
I think that what I would like to leave you all with is, what we're doing now, we're doing this as a community, and that is what I think we need. The young man here asked about prevention services, and it's not that when you get to the court, it is too late, but I have a different role. And that is not necessarily prevention. But one thing that we have done informally and that I think we can do formally as a community is kind of come together. And so when I meet people and know what their position is and know what it is they do, those are people that I call on and maybe direct families and things like that too. I don't know Rominsky because he works at the RYDC. I know him because our child played football together. And then when I found out, that's who over the RYDC? Oh, okay, I already know his phone number. And then we began to conversate about children, or converse, whatever the word is, about children. And then I do the same with Pastor Johnson. And so I did not meet him when he was doing Cure Violence. I'm not exactly sure how we met, but he calls me. That is what we communicate about, children. So he may call me and say, hey, there is this child, I'm not sure if you know him, I always do, I don't know why. And then that's what we talk about. And I may refer children out to other places. But a lot of times in the community, we come to the court, for help. And I'm not saying that we're not here to help, but I would have to refer out. When I worked at the district attorney's office and people would say, well, I came here because I needed help. I don't help, I lock people up. That's kind of what they do at the district attorney's office. So we as a community are the ones that have to be able to, come together and help with the prevention services. But Shay, I'm not talking about Judge Young, but Shay as a part of the community, I do know of some prevention services, but like she said, we have to do this together. We have a lot of, broken, or we have a lot of disjointed pieces, but we can do this together as a community. And I am a part of this community, and so I've never changed my cell phone number. I started to do it because every officer has my cell phone number, but I didn't because I want them to be able to call me. I want people to be able to call on me. Although I know I'm a judge and there are certain things that I'm held to a different standard at this point in my career, people should still be able to call on me as a member of the community so that we together can try to, at least with our kids, fix what is broken.
We need to pray. We need to connect people with the Word of God. That's going to be the ultimate. I think that's going to be the end game. That's my back door, is salvation. All of it leads to that. The second thing is, I know that the youth are so very important, and they are the future. They are the future leaders, champions. We cannot forget the adults that are going through as well, because many of them are the influence of these young people. And so I don't want us to focus so much on young people, that the adults who have had that traumatic experience or are down the line, that we don't help in the paradigm shift with them, because it'll be their words that'll have weight, because they're the OGs. That's the bottom line. And even with Cure Violence, we go get credible messengers because people, they got a face card. And because their face is good, people listen to them. So we need to make sure that we reach out to those individuals as well, if for nothing else, to say to them, listen, you've got your lifestyle, but we want to save a life. And so I need you to talk to these young guys and these young ladies, because even though you survive, they won't. And so we need to make sure that we engage them as well. And then on that prevention side, man, I think one thing that I've always preached in Ohio is that we need to go back to volunteering on on coaching. We need to get back in the sports game, the band, at drill teams. We need to get back on all of those things, because that's where those mentors were back 40 years ago when I was in high school. That's where those mentors were. They didn't just want us to be winners on the game. They wanted us to be winners in life. We've lost them. So a lot of times the coaches, they need help because they can't do the mental health counseling, pick them up, be the daddy, be the coach. They can't do all that. So we got to we got captive audiences right now all over the city that are playing sports and doing things where we can go do prevention right there. We don't need to find a program. We need to be the program. All right. And then once we become that, then we can expand it. And who knows? You become the program. You find a purpose. Somebody gets you a 501c3. Then you got a grant. But the bottom line is I got to be it before I run it. And so just find somewhere to go do what you do. One child, one situation at a time. Let that become contagious. And then I think we got real prevention.
Yes, let's give him a round of applause. As we are closing out, I just want to make this closing statement as well of what you have heard. We have heard the conversation about prevention. We know that is important, as well as the intervention, the intervening and getting in the middle, but also understanding that redemption piece of it, that we are all in a process somewhere along this line, even now as where we are as adults. And there is a lot of good things that are taking place in our community, and we cannot just sit back. I say this sometimes, is that we spend too much time criticizing the food that's being cooked when we don't know how to cook. We're not even in the kitchen. And so we have to be involved, because one of the things that we do as a community, we hurt ourselves by speaking so much instead of collaborating more, instead of being there more, instead of being more involved. It's easy for me to ride to my nice house and get up under my cover and pull out my phone and have a whole lot to say. It's easy for me to do that because it doesn't affect me like that. I'm not involved. So it's important for us to have proximity and to be a part of what's taking place and decide that every child in this community is worth it. I don't care what race they are. Every child in this community is worth it, and every person in this community is worth it. And so when we get the chance and we get the opportunity, please understand, and I say it all the time, all voting is local. You heard Reminsky as well as Shay say, and I said their names because they're speaking from community members' standpoint as well as their authoritative roles, is that when the state sets a budget of what they're going to receive, they got to go by that budget. But the person who makes the budget, I put their name on that thing and checked and said yes or no. So it's up to us to make sure that we are being involved in the process of the people that make the decisions and making sure that we are involved in that as well. If we don't, then we just leave it up to, we shooting dice. We just leave it up to whatever, and then we get upset on the back end. It's time for us to be more proactive instead of reactive. It's time for us to do exactly what Bishop said, to start setting standards and being standards instead of giving somebody else the opportunity to tell us what those standards should be in our community. So let's be involved, let's be intentional, and let's be consistent. Let's not fall off. Let's be consistent and we can see the changes that we want to happen. It's living proof. It's examples, and it can happen right here in our local community. Our community is not gone to hell in a handbasket. Our community is the next thriving thing. It's thriving now. We're just catching up to the thriving. So we need to be involved. We need each other. So thank you all for coming out. Can we give Dr. Dominique Johnson and the Cure Violence team and this Violence Prevention Week a round of applause again? We thank each and every one of you for coming out and being with us on tonight. There is snacks in the back. Everybody be safe. And have a good night.
Not feeling anything by, really, I ain't feeling you either. Whether or not you feel it, I'm not forgetting what God has given to me. I could be locked up, pinned up inside the prison and not to visit or preach. God willing, I'ma give him the gospel till I'm not in position to speak. You can knock it, but I'ma rock with the rock and I'm not missing a beat. Listen to me, dog, I was up in Walmart with a scan gun for the canned goods. I could rap good, but I did what I could for the fam, that's manhood. Quit looking for the quick lick. Told God if you're not with it, I quit this. That's when he told me, no, you just go and be lit. I been on the road doing shows ever since then. Tell them what I know, pray their souls will get lifted. Bless them with the flow, but the goal is repentance. Never get it twisted. Yeah, daddy let me loose. They gotta move. Bishop put the burner, baby. I got the juice. They hating on my team, cause we the truth. Won't he do it? And we the proof. We gon' take them way, 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 way. Talk on me, but you know that I'ma talk back. You ain't pitching, you can walk back. You ain't gotta ride, you can walk back. Hey, we need to get the salt back. Dark rap, make the blackboard. And if you ain't teaching from the most high, little homie, you could get a chalk back. Homie, I can never go back. I was down in the gutter, man. Low in a dark place. Oh, thank God, he the Prozac. Everybody gotta raise up. Knees down and the praise up. Lock down, homie, stay up. Tell them all that there's a way up.
The blood, we covered by it. Speaking up when everyone is silent. Think we don't, man, y'all confused. We be dropping jewels like a drunken pirate. Showing up the parties uninvited with the Sunday fire. I be praising God with. Probably leaving everyone inspired. If they spirits any higher, they would mosh pit.